Welcome to the third edition of the CCN podcast. I'm your host, Paul Medor. Today is May 22nd, 2015. The price of Bitcoin is trending between $233 and $236. In this episode, we will have a snippet of my interview with Nathaniel Popper, the New York Times writer who has mostly written about Bitcoin for them, and more recently, he is the author of Digital Gold, Bitcoin and the Inside Story of the Misfits and Millionaires Trying to Reinvent Money. That book is now available from HarperCollins. You can buy it using Bitcoin via Overstock for $16.58, or I assume you could also use Purse.io, the site which allows users to get discounts for shopping Amazon with Bitcoin. We also have an interview with Matthew Charnick, a developer of Burst Coin. Burst uses proof of capacity for mining and confirmation. In addition to that, I spoke to him about the recent integration of atomic cross-chain transactions between Burst and Cora, another cryptocurrency. But first, some of the headlines. New York Department of Financial Services Chief Benjamin Losky has decided to step down at the end of June. Losky, as our readers and listeners may be aware, is the somewhat legendary bulldog regulator who has been the bane of large banks for years. In April, Losky informed the cryptocurrency community that the BIT license would be finalized by the end of May. As we are now nearing the end of May, we'll see what becomes of the BIT license. Presumably it will be available in the next week or so. Losky will be starting a consulting firm for the virtual currency industry, basically helping companies deal with the regulations he is soon to put in place. PayPal was recently fined $25 million by the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau for unfairly enrolling customers into its credit program. $15 million out of that will go to recompensate consumers who were wrongly charged. In a statement on the matter, the director of that bureau, Rich Cordray, said, "The Bureau alleges that PayPal lured in customers to this product with deceptive advertising, signed up people without them knowing it, and then mishandled billing disputes when they arose. This kind of conduct has no place in the consumer financial marketplace. Under our proposed order, PayPal would return the $15 million that it illegally took from consumers, and it would pay a $10 million penalty for its wrongful actions. A judge will have to sign off on the agreement that PayPal has reached with the government. I must say, it's refreshing to see the regulators not only fine a bad financial actor, but also force them to compensate their victims. BitPay is working on a Factom-like project which will allow users to create an immutable database which will be secured by the Bitcoin blockchain. Dubbed ChainDB, the project is still in its early stages. As CCN writer Justin O'Connell says, quote, BitPay recognizes various projects that informed their development of ChainDB, including Namecoin, the BitShares project, Ethereum, and Truthcoin. BitPay also mentions Factom, which, quote, has advanced the concept of using the Bitcoin blockchain directly for timestamping data. These are just a few of the many projects that are advancing the state of the art in Bitcoin. Read his article on the subject for more information. Last but certainly not least, a major financial analysis website used by stock traders called FinViz, which is short for Financial Visualizations, has added Bitcoin to their Forex charts. Though we are far from the whole craving recognition stage with Bitcoin, where at this point it's clear we're here to stay, it is always nice to see the old world money handlers acknowledge the importance of Bitcoin. CCN currently has a story on our website about this, if you'd like more details, or you can just go to them directly at finviz.com. And now, here are a few minutes of my lengthier conversation with Nathaniel Popper. 3 years ago. So were you studying Bitcoin at all prior to that, or?
No.
Was it as part of your job at the New York Times that you kind of learned about it?
Yeah, it was totally as part of my job. It was, I feel like, Bitcoin, most people got in one of these waves where the price ran up and attracted a lot of attention. And so I found when I was researching the history that, it's kind of which wave did you get in on? And I got in, I think, probably on the one that most people did, which was in the spring of 2013. And, the Times had not really covered it at all up to that point. I think there was a sense around the Times that this wasn't really serious, that, you know, it was some weird online speculative thing. And I actually I ended up, the first story we wrote was actually about the Winklevoss twins and their Bitcoin fortune, which they hadn't previously gone public with. And so we wrote about them and, you know, how they built that up and how much it was, but also that was right at the time where the price was running up. So there was a lot of interest in, you know, sort of Bitcoin millionaires, people who'd gotten in early and made some money. And so that was actually the first story I did on it. And the reception, I mean, people were just so fascinated by it. I hadn't taken it that seriously, but, you know, it went on the front page and was the most read story, and people were so fascinated by it that it kind of woke me up.
Right, and certainly a lot of other people are very dismissive, even today.
Yeah.
Did you run into that a lot at your workplace?
Yeah. I mean, I think there's still, you know, I live in a world where people are not naturally inclined to be interested in this, and frankly, for the first year, I mean, I found it increasingly fascinating, but it took many months for me to you know, think that this was something that was going to last and that sort of, you know, mattered in some way, that could matter in some way. I actually, as 2013 went on and I kept writing about it, number of book agents came to me and said, you know, you should write a book about this. And for the first number of months, I said no. I just don't want to tie myself to it, something that could, you know, disappear so quickly and so easily. And
well, I mean, people wrote books about Beanie Babies too, you know.
Right. There's one out right now about Beanie Babies. So yeah, so that was, I mean, my fear was I don't want to spend a year of my life writing about something that's gonna, you know, could be gone by the time the book's done. But by the spring of 2014, I had been covering it enough and sort of dived in enough that I realized this was just sort of an incredible world to explore. And, you know, for me, as a journalist, for me, it wasn't, you know, this wasn't a matter of, you know, do I think Bitcoin should be worth X amount of dollars or you know, do I believe in Bitcoin? It was, is there something interesting and important here? And I think that's what I came around to and ultimately realized, you know, there is a real story to tell here. You know, this is an important thing, the community that's built around it and sort of what the technology is and what it stands for.
So I mean, you know, I think there is a serious, since it all happens on the internet, it makes it difficult, I think, to make it real for some people.
That was actually a big part of, you know, that was a big sort of element of the way I approached this story. And what I realized, in the Times, there had actually previously been a story or two that kind of wrote abstractly about Bitcoin and sort of said, here's this thing and here's how it works and is it going to matter? And that story had just, you know, readers had just totally ignored it. The editors had placed it in the back of the paper. And, you know, when it was put in this kind of bloodless terms without people, it wasn't all that interesting. And I think, you know, one lucky part of getting started by writing about the Winklevoss twins was that from the beginning I was dealing with people who were invested in this and sort of these people, and why did they care about it? And really from that point forward, I kind of only wrote about it when I could write about the people. And, you know, what are your motivations? Why do you care about this? And one of the things that made me want to write the book ultimately was seen the number of people who had kind of given their lives over to this. And I'm in New York, so the Twins, they're often mocked for being dilettantes by people in the Bitcoin community, but they really had given their lives over to this. They'd really dedicated themselves to Bitcoin. And the same thing with Charlie Shrem. And as I saw how this kind of really tapped into something deep with people, that's what made me particularly interested as a writer. And, what is it that makes you care so much about this, that gets you so worked up, gets you so excited? And, I always wrote the stories from the perspective of the people, and from the places, rather than these, kind of abstract stories about what is Bitcoin, what is, a fork, what is, how does a mining chip work? So when I wrote about mining, I have the resources of the New York Times, but I went to Iceland and I visited, this facility where they'd set up a mining, thousands of mining machines. And I think that brought it to life for people in a way. I mean, that was another piece that just the reception was sort of incredible. People could understand it once you saw the people who were actually doing this, and how you being there in person made such a difference. So that was a big part of my approach, was thinking about it through the people who are using it and doing it and caring about it.
Again, that was Nathaniel Popper, the New York Times go-to Bitcoin writer and the author of Digital Gold, which you can purchase with Bitcoin directly via Overstock.com. Nathaniel also told me during that conversation that was something that was actually important to HarperCollins, was that those who wanted to spend Bitcoin would be able to purchase the book without jumping through any hoops. And of course, Coinbase processes Bitcoin transactions for Overstock. Now please enjoy my interview with Matthew Sharnek, a developer on the proof of capacity algorithm coin called Burst. We spoke about the atomic cross-chain transfer between Burst and Cora, and he explains it very well in this short interview. I have on the line here Matthew Sarsnek. Did I say that right?
Charnek, like a check.
Okay. So Matthew, you're a developer with Burst Coin, correct?
Yes.
And so tell me a little about your developing background and how you came to cryptocurrency.
So I am a professional programmer and have been programming, last 10 years or something like that. I got into cryptocurrency back when Bitcoin had its first big spike. I had never heard of Bitcoin or cryptocurrency or anything, and I got pretty excited as soon as I heard about it and questioned and learned all I could about it. And I've been involved with it for the past year and a half. One of the first things I did was I got involved with NXT.
So Burst is somewhat, it has some of the same DNA as NXT. It does forging. It has a familiar wallet if an NXT user were to come to it. Mm-hmm. So, what do you know about? Like, tell us about Burst. I'm sure a lot of listeners this will be maybe the first they've heard of it.
The Burst is similar to NXT, or it started off as an NXT fork, but the key difference is that it replaces the proof of stake with proof of capacity. This means the more hard drive space you have, the more often you get to mine. And it has some very interesting implications for the long-term success of the coin.
So it's not mining, and when we think of mining, we think of solving blocks. I mean, it doesn't. I don't understand how you can do that with a gigabyte as opposed to a gigahash. Essentially in a proof of work system, you're solving these puzzles in real time. In a proof of capacity system, you have pre-solved these puzzles,
and save them to your hard drive, and you can and in real time you can pull them out and prove that you have solved these puzzles.
So by having the space for the solutions, that's how you're rewarded. Is that what you mean?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. I know a lot about crypto, but I do have an understanding, obviously, because I write about cryptocurrency for a living. So now Burst and Quora, I guess the story here really, they're working in concert to be sort of interoperable, right?
Correct. So you can now, in a trustless manner, you can exchange Burst and Quora, and you don't need to go through an exchange in the middle and risk holding onto your funds somewhere that could potentially be stolen.
Okay, so I might understand how that's useful, but explain to our listeners what the most common way they might need to use such a thing would be. Maybe they're okay with having a third-party exchange.
The biggest thing to think about is Mt. Gox. You have to trust. You have to trust that the people running the exchange will run off with your coins. You have to trust that. An exchange becomes a target for thieves, and it is a problem. And now you can eliminate the exchange and directly swap one for the other without the trust.
So if I have a Burst wallet and a Quora wallet, and I want to create a automated cross-chain transfer for myself, is there anything stopping me?
Oh, you want to do it yourself? Nope, not a problem.
Okay, that's what I was curious about. So, do you feel like this will have an effect on the number of Quora and Burst that are traded on regular exchanges?
Interesting question. I think that you will start finding these trades happen more often. I think you'll start finding that just in general, a lot of the coins will start implementing this, and will start trading off exchange.
So how extensive is your involvement with Burst? Would you say you're on the lead development team, or a part-time contributor, or?
I have another full-time job, but there are maybe 7 of us or so who are working pretty heavily to do the things that Burst needs done.
So what are the chances of like a C-based wallet, as opposed to what you have now, which runs in the browser and requires basically the user to run a server?
We already have that working in the background, but it's still under testing.
So you're just working on building a front end for it?
It's working. We just haven't publicly released it, and it's still being tested.
That's cool. So have you heard of any Burst knockoffs, I guess, other proof of capacity coins that have come as a result of you guys?
There is talk of someone who wants to fork Burst, but as of yet, Burst is the only one.
Okay, well, thank you for your time, Matthew. Let me hope I can get it right. Scharznek? Sharnek. Dang. Thank you for your time tonight, and have a great day. Thank you so much for tuning into this third episode of the CCN podcast. Please write in any comments, suggestions, guests you'd like to hear from, ideas, or criticisms to paul.madore@cryptocoinsnews.com. Visit us online at ccn.la and visit me at phm.link. This is Paul Madore signing off for CCN. Have a great day and happy trading.